Well, welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. My pleasure to be with you. Happy Shabbat to one and all. We have everybody here today. I think I even heard Larry's voice a little bit earlier, though I think we have Lisa. We have James and Kirk. How is everyone?
Good evening. Great.
Doing good.
Well,
very
terrific.
well, thank you. Shabbat
today,
Shalom.
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom.
Earlier today, Kirk and I, and JB has already posted it, did I think the fourth installment on what we're calling Moody Jeff. Moody Jeff is the graduate of Moody Bible College, that wrote a number of questions, but questions with attitude. And I responded to them, and he came back with a really condescending, negative attitude. And what we're doing is we're using his statements and questions, and the responses that I provided for them is just the opportunity to share. This is although he doesn't claim to be a Christian anymore, but it certainly is the Christian perspective, and why our perspective on things, our attitude, our approach to Yahweh's word is often more important than the questions we ask or the answers that we seek. And so we've been using that to do that. And I understand from Frank that he's even now having discussions with Moody Jeff. So I'm going to table it for this evening, just because, well, quite frankly, it's
You need a break.
4 programs on it. I want to get back to Chapter 7. We'll return to it and complete it during the observations program. So I'll just get to torment Scott and Kirk with it. And we're going to return to a word that I really found interesting. Now, you all know that I am prone to the phrases chase rabbits. That means that you're doing something and a rabbit crosses your path, and you leave what you're doing and you chase that rabbit down to see where it leads. And I've done that ever since I started translating Yahweh's testimony. If a really interesting word comes up or a concept comes up, like we talked about one of them in our last program, which was 3 destinations for human souls, where my entire life, everything I'd ever heard, and I think this is consistent with everyone, whether they be secular or sectarian, they had always heard that there are 2 destinations for souls, heaven or hell. And come to find out, that's not what Yahweh has to say. And when I first heard it, I spent months chasing that rabbit to find out what is God's position. And, come to find out there are 3 destinations for human souls. And there's been many, many situations like that. For example, we're going through the book of Yahshua in observations. And I came to a word that just fascinated me no end. And so I ended up devoting 2 chapters to this one word. It was henna, which means to pay attention, to look up, notice what's going on, and absorb the information so that you can respond rationally. And when Yahweh uses henna, I figured that he would disperse his uses of henna in places that were extremely important for us to be aware of what he was saying and why he was saying it, that those things would be germane to our ongoing existence. And so, I chased henna. Well, tonight, we're going to resume chasing a word that I just found utterly fascinating as I was concluding the 7th chapter of Observations. And that word is umph. And umph means hypothetical equivocation, which can inflame resentment and kindle animosity. So I'd like to begin with the passage in Yahshua that umph was presented in, and then consider its implications, because I think it's one of those words that the more we know, the better prepared we are to not only study Yahweh's testimony, but recognize what we should and shouldn't say, who we should oppose, and how we should oppose them, because our words ultimately matter. This statement begins: you should refrain from approaching and you should forsake, staying away from the provision and lot of the man whose conscience, neshama, promotes hypothetical equivocations which inflame resentment and kindle animosity because of what he plans and plots. So here Yahweh is associating neshama, which is, there aren't a lot of places where neshama is even discussed. It's a Hebrew word that is so mistranslated in Bibles, typically the breath of life. And clearly it's not the breath of life, because the breath of life is the nefesh, the soul.
Mm-hmm.
That when your soul is gone, you no longer have the breath of life, and nefesh actually means breath in Hebrew. So the neshama cannot be breath of life. And when you look at every time neshama is used, it very quickly becomes obvious that the one thing that God gave man, that made man different than the other animals, that was an adjunct to his soul, was this neshama, and that it was the seat of reasoning, a conscience, an ability to distinguish between right and wrong, to execute good judgment. And that becomes particularly obvious when you study the book of Job, because it's used several times there, and even more obvious when you realize that Yahweh's intent with the flood was to wipe out humans with a neshama. Not all human beings, not all Homo sapiens, just those with a neshama who would have been descendants of Adam and Chava, and thus lived in Mesopotamia all the way up to the Black Sea. And so this is a word which we have scrutinized because, well, even today we talked about it being one of the three gifts that God gave us.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us nefesh, our mortal life. He gave us free will, and he gave us humans a neshama, the ability to reason, to execute good judgment. So here, this word that we're going to chase down, is a product of a conscience that is broken. And a broken conscience promotes hypothetical equivocations which inflame resentment and kindle animosity. The thing that is the most troubling about religion is the hypocritical and hypothetical nature of it. I mean, how do you posture the idea that God is omnipotent when in fact you're promoting the idea that he forgives? They don't make sense together. Yeah, and if you think that God knows everything, then you would have to assume that God is impotent because he doesn't act to protect very many people, under even little children who suffer. And then the idea that God is omnipresent is so ludicrous, it would mean that God was in Adolf Hitler, that God is in a garden slug, that God is
every
in
jihad is roaming the earth.
Yes.
Here's another hypothetical equivocation.
Moles and groundhogs. I mean, it's just absurd. Rocks and trees.
Speaking on the word neshama,
mm-hmm.
Here's a hypothetical equivocation for you. If you hung around Jews long enough, they'll say something to you like neshama, and it's supposed to mean like darling, sweetheart, beloved. That's what they say it means.
Wow.
Although they don't have a clue what it means. Talk about a hypothetical equivocation.
Wow. Yeah, what's interesting is when Yahweh uses the term, it is the very thing, because when he says that animals have nefesh souls, he doesn't equate animals to himself. He says he loves them and they're good, but he does not equate to them. He doesn't say he loves them. He says they're good, but he doesn't equate animals to himself with the nefesh soul. He gives man a nesama, a conscience, and he says that they were created in his image. And so,
yes, and if he didn't love
it's the very
the
thing in
animals
humankind that makes us like God.
If he didn't love his creation, he wouldn't tell you, don't take the egg of a bird in front of its mother, or with its mother in the same day. He wouldn't have these instructions on how to treat animals if he didn't love his own creation.
Right. Well, and when he tells us that he is, for example, you don't make a habit of killing, he doesn't say don't make a habit of killing humans. Just don't make a habit of killing. Don't make a regular practice of killing. Now, he knows that you have to kill to eat. But it's another thing to, I have a lot of friends that hunt for fun. There's a lot of people in the military
I never got that.
that like to kill
like
what
the
they
British
consider
royal
bad guys.
family.
Right.
Who will go on hunts and kill hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animals for pride and vainglory.
So there are a lot of hypothetical equivocations which comprise religion and politics, where what the things that people say are just extraordinarily ridiculous. And God is saying that the Amph encourages misdirected anger. I mean, all the stupid stuff that religion has made up and attributed to God causes secular people to dislike God because they associate God with the religious stupidity.
Well,
and
not
he says,
just that. Look at how often it's been used to justify wars. Their religion's different than our religion, so we must go and kill them.
Correct. God is on our side. We're the moral country. It's and
God
is saying
bless America.
That hypothetical equivocations are the essence of the plans and plots of man. So I wanted to chase down Amph because when I read that, it struck me that the ultimate hypothetical equivocation was what Hasatan did with Towrah in the garden. So the next, so I pulled up that passage to see if, in fact, there would be an Amph in it. And here's what it said. Now the serpent was subtle, crafty, and clever, more than all living creatures of the environs which Yahweh Almighty had engaged. And he said to the woman, hypothetically, kindling some animosity, because and to the contrary, God said, you should not eat of any and every tree of the garden. No. Now, as you read that, there's a lot of things that strike you just right off the chute. God has equated subtle, crafty, and clever, cunning, tricky, treacherous, and shrewd, even sly, with Amph.
I like Paul.
Right. The hypotheticals. Paul postured that God created a new covenant and that the old covenant was with Hagar. That was his hypothetical. He had the hypothetical that Abraham was saved by faith because he didn't have the Torah. Well, both statements, his hypotheticals, were entirely opposite of what God actually said. God said, I gave my Torah to Abraham, and Abraham knew him, which is why he trusted and relied. But that is the nature of a hypothetical. So when somebody is establishing one of these, it is typically someone who is subtle, crafty, and clever. Now, the second thing that struck me is that how is it that the overwhelming preponderance of religious people picture Satan as in satanic worship, as in the devil who is ugly and horned and red,
cloven feet, red, horned.
Right. Right, and who is, like the exorcist, doing all these scary things, and opposed to the church, and wants to be approach people in the dark, and that is not how God depicts him. I think God knows him. He created him, and since God created him, and he actually uses him, I'm going to trust God that he's going to give us an accurate depiction of him. And he did not say that he is ugly. He said that he is subtle, crafty, clever. And that really, if you put the pieces together and you realize that Yahweh uses the term Baal, Lord, to depict Satan, it becomes obvious that Satan has achieved what God said that he craved, which is to be seen as above the Most High, as above God, as above Yahweh, as God, therefore, above Yahweh, that he has achieved that by becoming the God of Christianity, by becoming the God of Islam. He was the God of all those pagan religions. So
a way to look at this is, I don't know if you've ever seen it's an old movie from like the 70s and 80s called Oh God with comedian George Burns. In the third one, they bring in the devil, who's also played by George Burns. And the guy George Burns is talking with, he goes, well, he looked just like you. He goes, oh, yeah, he always wanted to be me.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is the perfect depiction right there.
Right.
He's going to appear what you think God looks like because he wants you to think of him as God.
Yeah.
In Christianity, it is a very clever counterfeit where Satan is both Jesus Christ and God, and therefore he was born, and he will come to an end, and he is Lord, and he wants to be worshipped, and he created the ideal path to him, which is we're going to celebrate the events of Passover, which is dead God on a stick, but we're going to ignore matzah, and we're going to ignore Bikurim and actually change it to the pagan Mother of God, Queen of Heaven Day, Easter. And so he's created a religion in Christianity that will cause those who believe him and act upon what he has done to spend eternity with him. And then with Islam, Allah is in every way Satan. Spends all of his time in hell torturing unbelievers. He is duplicitous, and his definition of that which is good, for example, good food in Islam is halal, which is in fact Satan's name, Halal bin Shakar, according to Yahweh through Yashayah. So,
and he loves it when you put your face in the sand to prostrate to him.
Of course. He wants people to bow down to him. He's the Lord after all. He wants to be worshipped. He's the Lord after all.
It's no different from the God of the Jews, who is Adonai.
Right, he wants you to submit to them.
He wants you to run back and forth at the wall and put little pieces of paper in between, like mortar, thinking you're going to get something from some, genie bottle?
Yeah. So that is the part of Hasatan that people don't get, that he pretends to be God. And that is how he wants to be seen. He never wants to be worshipped as the adversary. When Yahweh discloses his nature, Yahweh didn't say, I'm going to cast you out of heaven because you want to be perceived as the adversary. It was because you wanted to be perceived as above God.
Yeah.
And people just don't put things together so that they can come to a reasoned and rational conclusion, and that's why they do not know that the God of Christianity and the God of Islam is Satan. And truly, the inspiration behind many of those who are zealots patriotically, militarily, the dictators who have throughout time presented themselves as incarnations of God, like Adolf Hitler did, for example, and Paul did for really much of his life, as did Muhammad. they are demonically possessed. And
they're off.
most of them admitted to being demonically possessed. So now the serpent was subtle, crafty, and clever, arum, cunning, tricky, and treacherous, shrewd and sly. That means he's not in your face. He's never going to be who he claims to be. Of all of the living creatures in the vines which Yahweh Almighty had engaged, and he said to the woman, hypothetically, while kindling some animosity, and we talked about this several weeks ago, and you know what's amazing is that I didn't get any critical letters on this, and I think we have an audience that is pretty even, men and women that listen to this program. But when you read that, if you fully amplify it suggests that Yahowah fostered some animosity. Now, clearly, Hasatan had animosity towards Yahowah, but he took advantage of some latent animosity within Yahowah. And we just talked about it. It's interesting to try to assess why Yahowah might have fostered some animosity towards Yahowah. And you know, I don't know the answer to this, and so we're just speculating, but you know, it may have been that she felt that Adam and Yahowah had a closer relationship.
Yeah.
Than she and
what
Yahowah.
Is it? Yes. What does
Maybe
it
she
say
didn't like the fact that Adam was spending more time with Yahowah than he was with her. For example, when Hasatan came up, they were not together, which suggests that Adam was with Yahowah. So there may be something to this. You know, I don't know what it is. I'm just fascinated by the implications of it. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. Af, the Hebrew word we're talking 639 strong number, right? From Anaf. Okay.
639, yeah.
And now all I pick up, because I don't have a bunch of the fancy lexicons, I'm working my way there. But there's you ever see a beautiful Arabian horse, you know, from the land?
They have two.
And they'll snarl their nostrils really wide when they're ready to go, when they're angry, when they're spirited, when they want to run and charge. This is like an old Hebrew, like almost idiom, like flaring the nostrils. When you get angry, I can always tell when someone's angry. I don't care when they're smiling.
The Hebrew word for anger, for wrath, actually means to flare one's nostrils.
Mm-hmm.
So flaring one's nostrils is equivalent to anger in the Hebrew language. Anyway, from all those fancy lexicons, so I'll give you the full breakdown of from all of the lexicons. Hypothetically, while kindling some animosity, nevertheless, to some extent, surely and conditionally, harboring some bitterness, while inflaming resentment, revealing overall displeasure with a situation, and subsequently evoking and encouraging misdirected anger, displaying an enraged arrogance as a wrathful, snorting blowhard, ferociously demonstrating a haughty, conceited, and contrarian countenance. You know, bad attitude. That's why we spend so much time on Moody Jeff.
I think your lexicon.
The attitude that framed his questions was a contrarian countenance. It's very hard to find Yahowah with a contrarian countenance while promoting hypothetical equivocations. That's the antithesis of the approach that works with Yahowah. If you want to approach Yahowah, you have to be straightforward. You have to be totally and completely reasoned and rational, and you have to go where the words lead. It's a very disciplined, forthright approach. Go ahead.
There's one your lexicon missed, though. Anf also means to put your nose in the dirt, because it's not a very nice place to be. And for you Muslims out there, this is for you. Yahowah doesn't want you there.
Yeah, that's right. That's where Satan wants you, all right. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, Kirk,
yeah.
That's funny.
No, I was just going to say if I listed Paul, Muhammad, Hadrian, Hitler, and Akiba, and I put these next to the name, that would describe them, wouldn't it? I mean, they're all angry. They all hate God. They're all twisting. They're all quick-tempered.
Yes.
Every time you said something to Paul, he quickly was,
ferocious blowhard.
You know.
Most American politicians too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even Paul's love letter, his 1 Corinthians, 11, his love letter. Everything he says in his love letter is actually contrary to Yahweh's depiction of what is appropriate in love. Like he says, love isn't jealous. Well, Yahweh says that he's jealous.
I'm jealous and jealous.
And and to love that which is harmful, to love that which is wrong, to love that which is misleading, is to be completely wrong from God's point of view. You ought not love. In fact, you ought to hate those things which are contrary to the well-being of your family and those you love. So, very interesting how in fact is the stuff of Hasatan, of Satan himself. And then the next part of this that I thought was so interesting, because Satan says, because God said, you should not eat of any and every tree in the garden, min kol esh. That's not what God said.
No.
God said you can eat from any tree of the garden, just don't eat from that tree.
Except this one.
Right. You can eat from any tree in the garden. So he did not say what Satan said. And the reason that's important is for people who are still religious to come to realize that this absurd and absolutely impossible notion that God would not allow his words to be corrupted is in complete conflict with what Yahweh wrote in Bereshit 3:1.
But the King James is authorized, man.
Right. Who do you think allowed Hasatan in?
And what about that Jerusalem Bible?
The garden was surrounded by Malak. And so Yahweh let Hasatan in, and Hasatan corrupted the words of Yahweh.
Wait, can you repeat that for really slow listeners? Because, I don't think that people really understand this and can wrap their head around.
There are many reasons. Okay, there are many reasons why the myth that God would not allow man to corrupt his testimony, and therefore the religious conclusion is that the Quran or the Christian New Testament is the inerrant word of God. Absolute proof of that is in the 3rd chapter, the first statement of Bereshit Genesis. Yahweh, who allowed Hasatan into the garden, allowed Hasatan to corrupt his testimony. God did not say, you should not eat of any tree and any and every tree of the garden. He did not say that. It is a twisting, a corruption, a misquotation of what God said. For example...
And what do you think the chances are that God, that has made hundreds and hundreds of completely accurate prophecies, didn't know exactly what he was going to say once he was in the garden?
No chance whatsoever.
Yahweh created man within a psalma, so he'd be able to learn the difference between what was allowed into the garden and happened, and that he would have the right mindset to pull apart that is from what is true from that which is not true.
Yes. In fact, Towrah at that moment had an asama, and she could have said to Hasatan, you've misquoted God. That's not what he said. I cannot trust you because you have misquoted God. But, the other proof, of course, is...
in defense of Towrah, if I may. In defense of Towrah. Yes, I understand she was angry. She
harbors some resentment.
Flaring her nostrils. She's not happy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But Yahweh walked with Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh spoke with Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Did he speak ever directly with Yahweh?
We're not told.
We know of.
We're never told. And we're never told. By the way, Adam was created for Yahweh. Yeah. Adam was created for Yahweh. Companionship with Yahweh
was created for Adam.
Yahweh was created for Adam. She would have had reason to harbor a little animosity.
But she never heard firsthand from Yahweh what the instructions were.
That's actually a point I thought of before.
And the fact that people like Paul and Akiba,
or did Adam when he told her?
Right. And when we have people like Paul and Akiba and Shabbatai Zebedee or Muhammad, Qassam, whatever you want to call them, and all the rest of these people who feign to speak for Yahweh and do not. This is a lesson to us all. Check the word, people.
If you're going, there's only one appropriate way to speak for Yahweh, at least in our day. There was a time, going back thousands of years ago, where Yahweh specifically inspired people like Dode, like Moshe, like Samuel, to speak for him. Today, if you're going to speak for God, you have to let God speak for himself. And the only way you can do that is to make the best attempt you can to accurately and completely translate what he said. And so long as you're making a honest, studious, disciplined, straightforward, consistent, thoughtful approach to translating his testimony, then you are, in fact, allowing him to speak for himself. And that's what we attempt to do. Yes, but
if you're coming at it from the way of Chawa, who you can just equate her to the religious whore, the woman. If you're coming from it from an angry, flared nostril point of view, where you're in it just to prove your point and to prove your moody Bible education or anything else, then you're coming at it the wrong way.
Yeah, you got to be very careful of your attitude. It's this. There is nothing more ingratiating to God or irritating to God than attitude. Those people with a big ego, like Paul, never speak for God because their ego, Muhammad, the ego precludes God from working with them. People like Moshe, when approached, saying, "Hey, man, you got the wrong guy. I don't speak well." Find somebody else. Someone like Yirmiyahu who said, "Wait, I'm way too young. There's a lot more qualified people out there."
Or Yonah, how he ran away.
Right. Yonah ran away from the whole thing.
Swallowed up.
Yeah, and so even Abraham saying, "I don't get it, God." I mean, Abraham never once said, "I am really special. I understand why God sought me out." Never. Dode doesn't tout his own prowess. And so ego is one of the things that God does not like. Attitude is probably the single most important thing. As we think of who God chose to speak through and who God chose to introduce himself to so that they would ultimately become part of the covenant, since we don't know enough to make a rational decision when we're first introduced to Yahweh, you've got to figure God has chosen, there is some aspect that is a common denominator of those people he chooses to introduce himself to, and the most likely common denominator is attitude. It's attitudinal. If you have the kind of attitude that you're going to explore Yahweh's testimony because you find it fascinating? Are you going to trust what he said, and are you going to agree with what he said? If God says something and man says something, are you more prone to accept what God says? Or are you religious and you're going to reject what God says and choose instead what man says? attitude.
Can you recognize the truth when you see it, when you hear it?
Are you willing to accept the truth? Are you willing to act upon it? Yeah. So this chasing down Amph, because it appears to me, and you guys have already come to this conclusion, that Amph is not only the essence of Hasatan and his religious ideals, it is the mother's milk, if you will, of religion and politics. So I turn to Mashal, Proverbs 11, which not only speaks of Amph, but all the way through here we're going to be introduced to Amph in connection with something that is also found in Eden. So listen. He who diligently seeks that which is agreeable and good, Tob. We talked about Tob today in the observations program. Rather than evangelion, you meaning good, agreeable, beneficial, desirable. Yosha didn't say you, the Greek word for Tob, and agelos, which is the Greek word for malach. He said Tob. Tob is the Hebrew word for good, agreeable, desirous, desirable, generous, beneficial, pleasing, enjoyable, delightful, and most importantly, correct. Tob is correct.
It's a good word.
What's agreeable to God. So, he who diligently seeks that which is Tob procures information leading to acceptance and approval. That's the ultimate garbage in, garbage out. But if you process that which is nourishing and nurturing, if you process that which is from Yahweh, then it's going to lead you in the right direction. Seek that which is from Yahweh, His Torah, His prophets. Look at His words, and if you do that, because He says His Torah is Tob, if you do that, you're ultimately going to be led to, and you're going to procure, you're going to acquire the kind of information that leads to you being accepted and approved. We study the Torah. We learn about the covenant. That leads to our acceptance and approval. We study the heart of the Torah, Kara, invitations to be called out, and we learn about the 7 mikre that Yahweh has, and they lead to us being accepted and approved. So then it says in the contrary, but he who consults with and petitions, this is Ra'ah in this case, that which is evil and harmful, perverted and corrupt, such things will lead him, such things will come to him, Such things will come to him. So,
evil comes to him.
Yeah,
and notice which way the Rosh is going. Towards the evil.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the difference between good and Ra'ah, evil, is that in Tob, you bakash, you search, you inquire, you seek, you secure, you even demand. I don't know how many times I've heard from people who've come to say how they know Yahweh is they demanded to know His name.
Yeah, in fact, there's 2 words in here, both Hebrew words, that speak of searching. Shakar is the primary Hebrew word for search. It means to diligently seek, to earnestly desire, to deliberately look for, to carefully search. That's Shakar. And then Bakash means to procure information, to inquire about, to learn about, to search for.
To strive for it.
Right. You're not going to find Yahweh if you're looking for the needle in the haystack. You're not going to find Yahweh if you walk into a church. You've got to search for Him in the place where He revealed Himself. Boy, that sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? You want to know Yahweh, you need to search for Him in the place He revealed Himself. If you want to be accepted by Him, you have to search the place where He laid out the path to be accepted by him. That is so straightforward, it's a wonder that there's only about 1,000 people on the planet today that do exactly that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that these were both these words were ascribed in the imperfect, meaning this isn't a one and done thing. You have to continue to do it.
Yes. Yeah, my guess is that both of them were written in the imperfect. I don't have it handy up for me right at the moment, but it would certainly make sense for that to be the case.
It is a lifelong search.
Right. But you know,
just
in case you didn't know, Yahweh says specifically his Torah is Tob. And this is, so you have to diligently search that which is Tob. He doesn't call a lot of things good, but his Torah is Tob. Diligently seek the Torah, and you'll procure the information that leads to acceptance and being approved, because that's where the mikre are presented. It's where the terms and conditions of the covenant are presented. It's where God is introduced. It's what God sought to achieve in his relationship with man is presented. It's all there. But if you consult with and petition that which is raw, perverted and corrupt, that which shepherds and guides to that which is wrong and immoral or fraudulent, feeding the flock that which is troubling, malignant, and ruinous, such things will come to him. You get what you deserve. God was extraordinarily fair.
Give what you seek for.
As a Jew, reading that verse, it had a profound effect on me for one reason. The word darash. He used the darash ra. And you ever wonder, sitting there reading your 11 hours of Talmudic mid-darash, what you're doing?
Not mine.
Wow.
I mean, not mine either, but, you know, I always wonder why they call it the midrash. Midbar darash. Is that what you're doing to your people? Feeding them garbage?
Right.
In the garbage.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage out. You know, you study the Quran, you're going to be a jihadist.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be a murderer.
Pretty much the only conclusion. Or you're going to recruit jihadists.
They
don't go trouble on themselves. They recruit others to do it.
Yeah, you fall in love with the Pauline Christian New Testament.
Your nostrils are going to flare at the world because you hate your life, you hate your God hates you, and you hate the world. What's to live for? Muslims worship death, and for a good reason.
Well, you know, speaking of worshiping death, ever walked into a Christian church and see where they put God?
Oh, yeah.
You ever look at closely at a crucifix? God's dead on the crucifix.
Or he's an infantile at the breast of a whore.
Right.
Yeah. The religion's two favorite depictions.
Right.
A helpless baby and
by the way,
a dead God.
Miriam was not a whore, but in the Christian faith, she is the Madonna and child. She's the mother of God and the Queen of Heaven. That is the ultimate whore, according to Yahweh. There is no greater whore than the Madonna and child, the mother, the Virgin Mother with child, the Mother of God, the Queen of Heaven. That is Estar, the number two goddess, number one goddess, but number two God, if you will, and the Babylonian pantheon. This is really bad stuff. Yeah, that's why Satan is called the whore.
Yeah, I think in the end you're wrong. I think not only did Nimrod pale in comparison to Semiramis, I think that in the end of times, more people worshipped her and her image.
Yeah. In the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Well, we do, by the way, see Semiramis as a name. Well, we do see Semiramis as a name. The name that Yahweh uses, Astarte, was used far more commonly. You know, Semiramis is famous because of the two Babylons, but it's not the primary name under which the Babylonians and the Assyrians
Ashtoreth
sought. Yeah, Ashura and Astarte were the primary names of the Mother of God and the Queen of Heaven that became the Christian Mother of God, Queen of Heaven, Virgin and Child that you see holding the baby God.
And
so
all over the world
the
she has many names, but she's all the same woman.
All the same woman. She is the feminine manifestation of Hasatan, the adversary. So then God says, by trusting and relying in wealth, he will fall. Got to be really careful about money. Yahweh is not saying that if you have money, you will fall. Dode was probably the richest man of his day.
Yeah. He was loaded.
Solomon was the richest man of his day. Abraham had considerable wealth. Yahweh is not opposed to wealth. As a matter of fact, when you become part of the covenant family, you are specifically enriched. You're enriched with something that is far more valuable than money.
Valuable than money.
Right. It's not having money that causes a person to fall. It's relying on money. It's trusting in money.
You mean like Jews do today?
Yeah.
You mean like that?
Everyone gets it wrong. They're like, money is the root of all evil, but no, it's the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yes, and it's if you trust something, like if you trust your bank account or your job, you trust your Social Security or your Medicare, you trust your military or your police, if you are trusting your country or your religion, then you will fall. Those things are all not trustworthy.
Guaranteed.
Yahweh is extremely jealous in this regard. He will not share an affinity. You either trust him or you trust the things of man. And so it's trusting and relying upon wealth that causes one to fall.
Yep.
And when you fall from that height, it's pretty hard when you hit the floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to be really careful as to how we state this. There are things you can do with money. Today I logged into Blog Talk Radio, and it says our premium service is over. That means we cannot broadcast at this time. We can't. Our archived shows are scrubbed from them, and I think we have 1,200 hours of archived shows. We can't have people who listen on the telephone, and we have many who listen that way. We can't even have a show that goes longer than an hour, and we would have audio ads that would interrupt us in the middle of the show. Now, to avoid that, it's $1,000. And you say, if that $1,000 meant more to me than us being able to do this, we wouldn't have this show. But the fact that I had the ability to say, all right, I'll let them charge $1,000 to my credit card, we have the show. Now, so that means that it's not in every case is money is a bad thing. Money can do some good things.
Yes, and who is his audience? Who is he talking to? He's talking to specifically Yisrael and how they depend on their money. And if you tell me any different, I'll hit the roof because they do.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to the mashal, and I think most of the mashal are actually written by Dode. A lot of them are attributed for very weak reasons to Solomon. But I've read Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon, and I know the writing style of Solomon. And I've read the Psalms that we know are attributable to Dode, and I know the writing style of Dode. This is the writing style of Dode, not of Solomon. And so,
if there's anything I hate in Torah, it has to be Hashir Sharim.
Right. And I have never thought that Dode was writing to a audience that was exclusively Yisrael. I think Dode was writing. Dode
to anyone who
some
would
of Yisrael is actually opposed to him. I think that Dode was writing to anyone who valued coming to know and who respected Yahweh. So I think
the same audience Yahweh wrote
who
to.
is Yisrael other than who strives for Yahweh? No matter what your bloodline is.
If you're defining Yisrael by the meaning of the word, those who engage and endure with God, then I agree with you.
Yeah.
If it's 12 tribes of Yaakov, then I think
truth.
that his audience was bigger than that.
Yes.
All right. So, but by growing and the growing and uplifted foliage that absorbs the light, the one who is right will flourish and grow, taking flight, will blossom and thrive. That's kind of an interesting metaphor here. Aleh means to branch out and extend from a trunk of the tree, and it speaks of green leaves that nourish and support, and is something that ascends as a result of light. It is literally from Allah to go up, to meet, and to visit. And so it actually speaks of how leaves absorb light to create the nourishment, the energy that the tree uses to grow. Photosynthesis. So it's speaking of that process, that growing is about, for a tree, that growing is about absorbing light, which is photosynthesis.
And how a tree grows is that it has self-symmetry.
Okay. Now think about this for a moment before we get to the symmetry. Growth is, he is equating growth to the photosynthesis of a tree, where you grow if you absorb the light.
Mm-hmm.
The Torah is light. Yahweh is light. Yep. The set-apart Spirit is light. If we absorb the light, we grow.
Stay in the dark, you die.
Right. So if you absorb the light of the Torah, if you absorb the light of the set-apart Spirit, if you absorb the light of Yahweh, you grow. And you're right. Trees have a symmetrical nature, and they're firmly rooted in the land. Another
metaphor.
Really powerful metaphor. And so if like ka, similar to, they're growing in uplifted foliage that absorbs the light, the one who is right, sadak, upright, right, will flourish and grow, taking flight. We're going to blossom. We're going to thrive. We're going to take flight. We're going to flourish. That's the whole idea of the covenant family, is to grow. Even God grows. We all grow. That's the essence of
that which does not grow dies.
Correct.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Craig. In the menorah, do you find the equation for pi?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The equation for pi is there. As is the symbolism of 6 plus 1 is God's ultimate objective.
Yeah. And a tree, when it grows through this thing called Fibonacci sequence, is the calculation for growth. And trees grow this way. Almost every fractal grows in this way.
You find the Fibonacci sequence everywhere.
There's self-symmetry.
Flowers,
There's
pine
self-symmetry that each
seashells.
leaf, as it grows out and spreads out and branches off and a new leaf grows, they make room for the rest of the leaves to grow. Mm-hmm. And thus, in the Mishpachah, we must do this also. Everybody has their own special talent. Everybody sees things from a perspective based on the words, as long as the words are your guide.
Yeah.
But there's enough sunlight for everybody.
Correct. Because of the way that the tree grows and spreads out.
Yeah.
And it is right when it is properly grounded, rooted. He who brings trouble to his family, he will inherit and take possession of a spirit. This is spirit lowercase. This is a spiritual being. And what's interesting here is what is his family. Now, I wrote his family when I did this in a lowercase h. I'm not sure that's right. I think he who brings trouble to his family, Yahweh's family, takes possession of a spirit.
I see, yeah.
Yeah,
that would make sense to me.
Because you bring trouble to your own family. You know, you could. Let's just say that we lived 1,000 years ago in medieval Europe, and if we spoke against the ultimate whore of Babylon, the Roman Catholic Church, we would bring enormous grief to our family. And yet we would be right. We would not inherit a spirit for bringing grief to our family. If you lived in any Islamic country and you spoke against Muhammad and Allah, you would bring enormous grief to your family, and yet you would not inherit a spirit of Satan. You would, in fact, be protected from it. So I think this has to be.
You would inherit a spirit, but it'd be a good spirit.
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily. I mean, you can be against evil and not be with Yahowah. I mean, my view is that, and I used to tell al-Rassooli all the time, and he was very articulate and reasoned and rational and courageous against Islam and against Allah. But I kept on telling him well, that's a wise, reasoned, and courageous thing to do. Doing that from the position of Yahweh's covenant, where you are protected and celebrate eternity, is a much better position. So you can be right in standing up against wrong and not be right with Yahweh. Right.
Yeah, I still love IQ though, man.
I do too. Oh no, IQ is one of my very favorite people. I was not being critical of IQ. I was just making the point.
I would love for IQ to come to know Yahweh.
I would too. Yeah, it'd be terrific. He'd be somebody I'd want in the covenant family. And as a slave to foolishness and perversity, he will mock the approach of one with the capacity to reason, the one who exercises good judgment. You know, it's Moody Jeff thing that we were taking, where he gave me the bird and called me all sorts of horrible names for giving him answers that were contrary to his religious upbringing. The fact of the matter is that those who have been a slave to that which is foolish and perverse, I almost always mock the approach of one who has the capacity to reason. I don't think any of us experience that more than Larry. Because Larry is willing to engage. So if he will approach the slave of foolishness. Most of us do. I don't think any of us more than Larry.
He goes well beyond where most of us do.
Oh, yeah. He goes beyond where most of us go in that regard. I get a lot of it, but I don't read 99% of it. I don't even respond to it, so it's less troubling in my case, just because I found that while I feel compelled to respond and share the truth and confront the lie when somebody is vociferous in my presence and is the slave to foolishness and perversity, I won't go out and seek them. No. I recognize that even Yahweh as himself, or Yahweh as is in the form of Yosha, they could not prevail with those who are literally slaves to foolishness. And I do like the fact that Yahweh used abad here, slave. Because it's very difficult. You know, if you look at the second most prominent name in Islam.
Abed, Habibi.
Abdullah. It's based on this Hebrew word for abed.
Yeah.
And it means, Abdallah means slave to Allah.
To Allah.
Right. Slave to foolishness and perversity. And of course,
I
they
never
mock.
met an Abdullah I like.
Oh, that's a thing.
Yeah. And really, those who aggressively promote religion, they're slaves to it. I mean, when Yahweh said that He came to rescue His people, to liberate His people who were slaves in Egypt, wasn't Egypt the ultimate cesspool of religion, politics, militarism, and slavery economics?
You forgot academia. You forgot academia.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But it was also they were slaves to their academia, which was the priesthood. They were slaves to the Pharaoh, pretended to be God. They were slaves to the economic interests. They were slaves to the military. They were slaves to that perverted religion of Amun-Ra. Amen-Ra. You know, they were literally slaves to those things. That's what Yahweh freed them from. He freed them from religion. He freed them from politics. He freed them from militarism. That's what He freed them from. And so those who have gone back into Mitzrayim, the crucible of human corruption, they're now slaves again to foolishness and perversity. And they mock. They are ignorant and obstinate. In fact, you can translate "you will" as stupid, idiotic. I mean, God doesn't have a problem
right down to its core.
You know, I like the word "stupid" because it describes the effect of religion.
It's like the old thing.
So
there's a difference between stupid and ignorant, and if you know the difference, there's hope for you.
Right.
I know a lot of smart Jews, but not one of them can find Yahusha in the Torah.
Yeah.
Come on.
To be a Christian or a Muslim, you have to be either ignorant, irrational, or both.
Yeah. Both.
Now, you don't have to be stupid, but you have to be ignorant, irrational, or both. And likely, if you are a Christian, you are stupid. If you are a Muslim, you have to be ignorant and irrational.
Same thing.
You absolutely have to be ignorant and irrational to be a Muslim.
Oh.
It's impossible to be a Muslim and not be ignorant and irrational. The religion is that stupid. The Quran is the worst book ever written. The very premise of it is so perverted, that Muhammad, a pedophile, a rapist, a terrorist, was somehow the spokesperson for a God
murderer.
Yeah, a mass murderer, and that this person claimed that his Quran confirmed the Torah when it's the antithesis of it. You have to be absolutely ignorant and irrational to be a Muslim. I mean, shame on you. And of course, you read Paul's letters, and the premise of Paul is that everything God said in His Torah was mean-spirited and has to be rejected. That God's impotent. He can't save you. And so God, recognizing that His approach failed, came to Paul, who by his own admission was a sexual pervert and wrathful murderer, and struck him blind and lame.
But to be fair, he was top of his class.
I have failed completely. I need you to come up with a new plan to save people. Now, if you believe
that
that's
makes
the case,
sense, doesn't it? I mean, that's what you expect from, the Creator of the universe. I failed.
But Paul
I need
was
your
top
help.
of his class at Pharisee school, so obviously he knows what he's doing.
Right.
That's why God went to him, because He knew how the Pharisees thought, and God loves those guys.
And JB's got a point, and I can see why this makes sense now. Of course. Sure.
It's so stupid that when, for example, I quoted earlier that Paul created the hypothetical in Galatians that the Old Covenant was based on slavery because the covenant in the Torah was through Hagar. Well, it's the opposite of what God said. And if you're reading that and you can't say, wait a minute, that's the opposite of what God's saying, He is lying, and you can't figure that that's a problem, then shame on you. It's just stupid. When Paul admits that he's demon-possessed in his second letter to Corinth, and you can't equate the fact.
And then you sit there and have hour-long sermons on what did he mean by that?
What is the thorn in my side? He's demon-possessed. Read the rest of the sentence. It's just unbelievable.
I actually had someone, when I pointed out to him that he says that the thorn in his side is a messenger of Satan, they go, well, I wonder what he meant by that. Maybe he meant what he said?
And the word stupid comes to mind.
The word stupid,
That's a person you don't even bother continuing a conversation with.
Wow.
There is zero hope there.
That's your sign.
You see, there's only one person that would make Larry blush, and that's me, because if that person were standing in front of me, there would have been no way that anyone was getting out without being embarrassed. That's just horrible. Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah.
The slave is, as a slave to foolishness and perversity, he will mock the approach of one with the capacity to reason, the one who exercises good judgment. Leb means to exercise good judgment in Hebrew. It does not speak of the heart as a source of emotion. And the Hebrew word shakam is to reason. It's open to learning, the intellect to be prudent, to be a trustworthy guide or advisor. You don't have rational emotions. Shakam Leb affirms that the heart is used in Hebrew to speak of the seat of reason. And so, as Larry has found out more than anybody else, when a person who is rational regarding Yahowah and who exercises good judgment approaches those who are slaves to foolishness and perversity, the religious will mock them and will even mock God.
Yeah, I got to correct you on one thing.
They'll not just mock God.
You said that
they'll
you don't have rational emotions, but I disagree with that. Yeah, my love of Yahweh comes from rationally knowing and understanding His Word. My love grew from that rationality.
Yeah, it's a derivative of it.
Yeah.
This whole thing of in the Middle East, typically in Middle Eastern countries, until the Western MTV generation spread their Western stuff all over the world, Middle Easterners didn't think that their emotions came from their heart so much as maybe off in Iran where all the poets were.
No, in the Middle East, emotions came from the liver.
Yes.
Yeah, the liver was considered the seat of emotion. Yeah. I don't know where he got that from, but it makes as much sense as the heart.
Yeah, the heart was
it's an arbitrary organ that we're attributing
I
this
think the
to.
heart as the source as a metaphor for reason makes sense because we take something to heart. When we incorporate that which is sound and rational and we use it to frame our view of the world.
Our being.
When it is the source that guides our attitude and our response, then we are taking it to heart and being rational about things. So it is the seat of reason from Yahweh's perspective. Yahweh uses Leb to describe the seat of reason, and not just an unattached seat of reason. Chakam is the Hebrew word for reason. Leb is the very seat of reason, and he uses Leb as this organ that pushes the blood through our body, because it's not just knowing the truth. It's not just knowing the terms of the covenant. It's incorporating them into your life. When the Torah forms the fabric of your life, when it guides your attitude and perspective, then you have taken it to heart. And that's why he uses heart in this regard.
I was saying, it's a perfect metaphor. Whatever goes into the heart spreads throughout the entire body.
Right.
You can rub something on your skin, and it will absorb in and do some topical, but it won't go throughout your whole body. Anything you shoot directly into the heart pumps throughout the rest of the body.
It feeds your brain and feeds your muscles.
And could you imagine saying, "Oh my gosh, I love you with all my liver"?
Well, and there's absolutely nothing on your body
that I love you with all of my judgment. So it goes back to what James said, is that his love is a derivative of reason.
Yeah.
Emotions have a role, but emotions must follow reason, not the other way around.
Correct. Absolutely correct. It is reasonable and rational to love Yahweh. Then he says the fruit, pari, the fruit, that which is produced, the result of being right, sadak, is a tree of lives. And it receives and accepts those with the capacity to reason and to understand by being discerning. Now, this is, it actually receives and accepts souls. So, we're presented in the garden the tree of lives, and it's always lives. It's chayim. So we ought not pretend that it's the tree of life. Yahweh can write. I'm certain Yahweh can write, and it's always presented as chayim. Chayim is absolutely the plural of che, which is the Hebrew word for life. So it is the tree of lives. And so when you read that, you need to think, well, what does that mean? What do you guys think it means? Why is it the tree of lives as opposed to the tree of life?
Well, in the Masoretic, it doesn't say that. I'm going to tell you that, so there's no thought process there at all.
Okay, well, it says lives.
The fruit of the righteous is the tree of life, and he that winneth the souls is what?
No, it's the tree of lives. The tree of lives.
Garbage.
YM in Hebrew is the means to plural. Yeah, anything that is YM is plural. And that's not the only way to create a plural in Hebrew, but it's the plural in Hebrew. 95% of the time is the YM. And so it is chayim, it is plural, it is lives. The Adam and Chawah.
Well, the Masoret that left the mem out of there should be.
The Y, the
he should live. May he live forever.
Right. Adam and Chawah were alive. They had a soul. Every human is, and every animal is created with a soul. That is a life. It's a mortal life, but it's a life.
They have a future life.
Right. So there is a future life. Now, in the future life, I actually think, and I'm, is there the possibility I'm wrong here? But let me just extrapolate with you a little bit.
Well, where did you find the M, first of all? Because it's definitely not in what I'm reading. I'm just getting.
It's in the original script. It's Chayim, Chaym.
Okay.
Now because just a Y at the end of the word would make it possessive it possessive first person. It would be the fruit of being right would be the tree. It would be a tree of my life. If it was just Y at the end of it, would be of my life.
Sense.
So it's not it's not that. We're all living a life now, a mortal existence. All of us are going to experience what will seem like an eternity, but is really going to be 7 years, or at least 7 years, I think, of a life where we get to explore the existing universe. Then we're going to be called back from that, and we're going to experience a 1,000-year life here on Earth. Now, I don't know if we'll get to continue to explore. I hope so. But we're going to experience another 1,000-year here on Earth in the presence of Yahweh while he resides in Jerusalem, in his home on Mount Moriah, on the summit. And then, after that 1,000 years, Yahweh is going to destroy this universe and create a new universe, and we're going to experience an eternity in that new universe. It is, in essence for us, it is a current life, followed by a life of exploration in the current universe, followed by a life of Sukkah with Yahweh, followed by eternity with Yahweh. The extension of many life experiences. It's lives. And plural suggests, ongoing, multiple.
Yep.
So.
Well, there's only one way it can fit in the sentence because you have just before that, you have Peri, Sadiq. Otherwise it would be Sadak. It would be one instead of plural. Otherwise, plural. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And
the
also think about
that is found in Ezekiel 28, where Yahweh speaking of this king, and he tells them that he will suffer the deaths, plural, of the uncircumcised.
Right.
Deaths was plural, not singular.
There's lives plural and there's deaths plural. Now, most people only have deaths. Most people really have deaths plural. The vast majority of people will die a mortal death, and then their soul will be extinguished. Deaths plural. And Yahweh's testimony, being right, is even more important in this life than it is in our eternal spiritual life. We're guaranteed of being right in our eternal spiritual life because Yahweh is going to write His Torah inside of us.
There's a system in there to keep that in check.
Right. There's a system that He has created to make certain we're right all the time. But being right now in this life is even more important.
It's more important because it's a choice.
Yeah, and it gets us to the continued life. That's why it's a tree of lives. But the fruit of being right, this is the great thing. It didn't say the truth of faith. It didn't say the fruit of believing. It didn't say that the fruit of just searching. You can search and not be right. We were talking about that in our last program.
The tree of giving it your best effort.
Right.
I searched all the way to the ashrams in India. Trust me, I was not Sadak.
Yeah, right. But you weren't right. You wrote me a note this week, JB, about learning to play the guitar. And if you take the wrong approach, if you use the wrong technique, you can work at it.
You can practice
every
8
day,
hours
5 hours a
day,
day,
matter.
and be a lousy guitarist at the end of it. If you can't read sheet music, if you're looking at the wrong
not
music,
only are you not good, you're actually
right.
counterproductive because now you've got to unlearn all that.
If you're looking at a concerto that was written for the tuba, and you're trying to play it on your guitar, I don't care how hard you practice. I don't care how hard you work at it.
It ain't
you're
going to sound good.
It isn't about trying. It's about being right. Searching provides the information that leads to being right, but it's about being right. Ultimately, it all boils down to being right. The fruit of being right is the tree of lives and accepts the souls of those with the capacity to reason and understand by being discerning. If we were to have a proof statement of everything that we've come to know and accept about the Torah, about Yahweh, about being part of the covenant, about knowing who God is, this is a proof text for us. The fruit of being right is a tree of lives, and it receives and accepts souls of those with the capacity to reason and understand by being discerning. That's a proof text for everything we've come to know and say and share and embrace and celebrate. It is who we are.
Yeah, that word chakam. I like that word.
Yeah, I love it too.
It's a very interesting word, chakam.
Yeah, it speaks of those who are open to learning and instruction, those who are intelligent and prudent, therefore receptive and open to a trustworthy guide and advisor. That fellow that I spoke about on the observations program, his name was Nathan Yahoo, that was felt that the verbs needed to be supplied to Yahowah to be able to say his name, even though his name was Nathan Yahoo. He said, I listen to these programs, and he says, don't get mad at me, but it sounds like the people that are speaking on that program are promoting a cult. Now, a cult is a place where no one thinks.
Don't get mad, but you're a cult.
No one becomes part of a cult by reason. And what we're celebrating here is the fruit of being right. Right about what? Right about the Torah. Right about the covenant. Right about Yahweh. Right about the Mikra. Right about what God says is the tree of lives. And it accepts souls of those with the capacity to reason. Have you ever heard of somebody reasoning their way into a covenant? And the whole way that you get into a cult is you're hoodwinked, you're brainwashed, you're kept from reason.
And don't think. You're not allowed to think.
Right.
You're taught not to question.
Much less question.
Exactly.
He speaks for God. You don't.
That's right.
Yeah. The capacity to reason and understand by being discerning. Chakam, one of the great Hebrew words. Surely, hen, look now and behold. Hen is the basis of, a contraction, if you will, of henna.
Yeah.
Hen, surely, behold. Those who are right in the land will be completely recompensed. Shalem. Will be totally repaid and compensated. Reconciled.
Shalom.
Surely. Pay attention. Those who are right. Doesn't say those who believe. Doesn't say those who join in. It doesn't say those who are popular. It doesn't say those who are wealthy. It doesn't say those who are religious. It says those who are right.
Yeah, shalom. Shalom.
Those who gave their best effort, who sought in their own way.
No. No, it doesn't
say. No.
It's not grading on the curve here, Moody Jeff. Those who are right. God gives you ample information to be right. But Sadak is what's key.
It's there.
It
really
right.
isn't that hard to find if you put forth any effort.
No. God never says those who are good will inherit. Those who are good will be restored. Those who are good will be reconciled. No, those who are right. Yahweh pronounced Dode Sadak, right. And the choice between being good and right, good won't get you anywhere. Right will get you right into the heart of God's family. You know, it was this comparison between Dode and Shaul. King Shaul was just so powerful to me. Yahweh twice speaks of King Malach Shaul as being good. He said there was nobody amongst all of humanity that was as good as this man. He was tall, he was handsome, he was good.
Mm-hmm.
And we know everything that we've learned about Dode is he was bad. But not only was Shaul killed and his head cut off and disgraced and God livid with him, not only did God tell us the 12 ways that Shaul would be self-serving and that anyone who trusts him was, in effect, in direct conflict with, in fact, he told Shemuel that, those who are promoting Shaul as king, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. And so this man who was good, following him was to reject Yahweh.
Wrong.
And yet Dode, who was bad, following what he says will lead you right into the presence of Yahweh because Dode was right. That's the thing that so many people get wrong. I even had a long conversation with my wife about a month ago and did not understand how it was possible that God could be far more interested and infinitely more interested in right over good.
He can fix good.
Well, right
he can fix bad, is what you should
good
say.
Is
he can fix bad, but he can't fix wrong.
No, he can't make you Sadak. You have to choose to be Sadak.
Right.
He can
but
reconcile
right
everything.
is objective. You are right or you are wrong. There is an answer.
I know plenty of good people.
Good and who dies. Yeah, the Muslim idea of good is being a suicide bomber.
Right.
Yeah, so good is subjective. Everyone has their own definition of good. But right is what Yahweh has said.
The Israelites
there is only one answer.
Shaul is good because he was handsome, he was rich, he was an excellent warrior, he was the best of all warriors. He was a really good fighter and hero. He was articulate. Tall, dark, and handsome, baby. He was good. But he was dead wrong when it came to Yahweh. he added to and took away from the Torah and became the path to reject God. It's literally symbolic of rejecting God. And Dode, who was bad, became the living symbol of what it is to be right with God.
Well, Dode never had a say on
it's like
either
this.
to bring up
You
a
can
human
fix
spirit.
behavior. You can't fix stupid.
No. And
yes,
if I look at my own character, I can be right very easily with God. Easy to be right with God. Being good, I can't be good by God's standard. Not capable at all.
No.
But I can be right.
None of us
All
can.
I've got,
But
you know,
that's why that
right
Pesach lamb is so tasty.
Yeah. With being right with Yahweh, it's really easy because it's an open book test.
Yeah, it is.
And there are so few things that you really have to know and understand to be right.
Speaking
Trust
of the
Yahweh.
open book test, speaking of the open book test, when Yahusha said, and we only have this in Greek, it is finished, it's completed. Don't you think he used the word shalom?
Of course.
That makes sense.
Of course, yeah.
There's not a single doubt
what it
in
means.
my mind.
Totally
said,
totally and completely.
That is core. That's what shalom means.
Right.
Complete.
Right. Complete.
Yes. And what is it?
Complete.
It's a covenant of what? Shalom.
Shalom. Yeah, of reconciliation, of completeness, of harmonious relationships. Yeah, shalom only means peace in the sense that you are reconciling troubled relationships so that there is harmony in the relationship. And since all Yah wants to have is a covenant relationship, shalom is the perfect word because it reconciles parties that were in conflict with one another so that they are completely harmonized. And he does that
in order to enact shalom, you have to have the shalom.
Yes.
If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be recompensed, and he has to pay the recompense for us to be shalom, reconciled. But indeed also, those who promote hypothetical equivocations which inflame resentment and kindle animosity, those who are vexing and wrong, those who bear blame for missing the way, will also be repaid for what they have done. So God is telling us the positive side, but also sharing the negative. That leads in exactly the opposite directions. It leads away from the tree of lives. It leads away from being reconciled. And it's these hypothetical equivocations that are the antithesis of reason, of being right. The hypothetical equivocations are the pontification of wrong. They create a resentment and an animosity to God. I think this is another thing that Larry knows more than anything else. When you share Yahweh's words with people who are slaves to religion, they are inflamed. They resent Yahweh's words. They have an animosity toward what God says. And that these hypothetical equivocations, according to God, are vexing and wrong. They're rasha. They're wicked. And those who bear blame for missing the way, wachata, and that's the essence of these religious hypotheticals, is they cause people to miss the way because they confuse them. Rather than just, Yahweh is very straightforward. It starts with the creation of the universe, him introducing himself to us, telling us each stage along the way of speaking the universe into existence, telling the story of human history over 7,000 years by that creation account, and then telling us what's going to happen on the fourth day where the greater light is going to become visible as a sign for the Moed, for the meetings. And then he creates the Garden of Eden and Adam, and talks about the Nephesh and the Nesalma, and the relationship he had with Adam, and then the creation of Towrah, and ultimately their relationship of perfect harmony in that garden. And then he allows Hasatan in. He goes about corrupting his testimony, misleads them with these hypothetical equivocations, which create animosity. And then he tells the story of the covenant through the flood and why it's important to listen to what God has to say and to act upon it and engage in that relationship if we're going to ride to safety in the Ark of the Covenant. And then the beautiful rainbow where the 7 colors are broken into their primary wavelengths. And then you are brought to the whole story of Babel and how Babel, the basis of Bible, and Babylon and religion and words are commixed, and what that leads to. And then Yahweh doesn't go himself to Babel, but as a man walks out of Babel, Yahweh approaches them and gives them the 5 terms and conditions to participate in the covenant and the benefits of it. And then that story then flows through his people being enslaved by the religious and political, militaristic corruption of Egypt, and Yahweh going to liberate them from those things. And that liberation playing out through the Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, and Shavuot, and how those 7 Mikre ultimately lead to us camping out with Yahweh. That's the story. It's straightforward.
You want to hear another story that you won't hear from your Bobby's Torah?
No, I like that story. I really like.
I like that one.
Well, I'm going to stick with that one. I'm not sure. I don't really want to hear another story. That's the only story I want to hear. I like that story.
It is.
I accept that story. I trust that story.
I do too.
That's my story.
That's my story. Yeah, it's Yahweh's story, but it's also my story. It's our story.
Yeah, there's a counterfeit to everything, and
of course
every Shabbat, Jews will do what they call kiddush, okay? And the whole concept of it is revolting. And they'll lay the hands, the mother will, after she lights the candles, on the heads of the daughter, and she'll say, may you be like Rachel and Leah, may you have the blessings of Let me tell you, I'm not a big fan, and I was a very small child, and I don't know why, but I like the idea of this woman named Ruth. I do. Always have. She was a goyish cop who turned around and knew more than Israel about their own Torah, and I thought that was just cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Rachel, there's another word that has the Hebrew root af in it. Teraphim.
Yeah.
Teraphim. Taraf. Rachel, I don't think she was she's supposed to be one of the matrons of Israel. I think she was an angry woman. To hide a teraphim, which is like an idol.
An idol.
Yes.
An idol, and to bleed on it, and then to have her child, whom she said was a demon, Benjamin, and she died shortly after.
Yeah.
Blaming
him
for her death. Yeah, blaming him for her death.
Yeah, and this is not a good story to me. I never wanted to be like Rachel, and they would do Kaddush, and they would say, and I would say, why can't I be like Ruth?
Yeah.
You should see the faces. You should see the faces of the people around me. They want to tear me to pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm just a child.
You don't want to give birth
to
Benjamin. Yeah, you don't want to give birth to Benjamin and die in the process. Benjamin was the plague of death. It is Paul.
Yeah, for a long time.
To do that.
I had no idea what a teraphim was until I started really digging into it. And until you understand the af in the middle of it, the anger, multiplied, plurality, then you don't understand Rachel. I don't like the woman.
No.
And I don't want to be like her. And you can say you're Kaddush somewhere else because you don't understand the story.
No, that's all true. I like the story that Yahweh tells, and one of the things that's interesting about the story of Yahweh and the way he tells it, it's real. You hear Abraham's lack of understanding. You hear Abraham's frustration. You hear Abraham's questions, and then you ultimately see Abraham's resolve. And that's the kind of story that's real. You hear Yahweh appearing as light to Moshe, and Moshe saying, I ain't going back there. I'll find somebody else. I ain't going back there. That was not fun. I ain't going back there. And Yahweh not giving up on him, being frustrated with him for sure. But the story is told in a way that's real and credible. Dode, who is the author of these magnificent psalms, Dode is the eyewitness to the life of Yosha. And
in First Samuel, Dode has Micah helps Dode escape Shaul.
Right.
He has a teraphim in his house, and she tells him it's actually Dode.
Right.
And I was like, what is this craziness?
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense to me because,
when you see in the middle of it.
Spoke. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But this is these hypothetical equivocations which inflame resentment is the very essence of how Satan creates religious myths that inflame an animosity towards God. And make no mistake, if you share the Torah, the prophets, and the Psalms, Yahweh's own words, which are anti-religious with the religious, they are extraordinarily hostile. They resent, they hate the God of the Torah. That's why when I saw the presidential inauguration and you had a Baptist preach telling the story of Nehemiah and talking about a story from the prophets, and you're saying, what in the world are you telling that story for? You hate that God. Your religion is inherent to that God.
I'm sure he told the story out of context and without the details, and he twisted it to fit his agenda. He learned from his master Paul.
Yeah, his only
Paul quoted the prophets when it suited him.
Right, that God chose in that case to work with a builder, not a religious or political leader, and that God was not opposed to building walls. Well, be careful there, pal, because God never, ever once spoke with or worked through a political or religious leader. He doesn't do it. Now, did he use Cyrus? Yeah, but Cyrus never do it. So God does not use political or religious leaders. When Dode became king, God didn't use him. God used him, and everything that Dode did that had value was before he became king.
When he was a shepherd.
Right. I'm not aware of anything that Solomon wrote that has any value
after he became king, in that it's a lesson for us. But, God didn't use him.
That is correct.
Yeah, here's something I really want to say to the Christians, ex-Christians, whatever, anyone that's listening. A teraphim is an idol. And that Christ, that dead character on a stick, dead God on a stick, that's a teraphim.
That is correct.
And to the Jews at the Western Wall, your Western Wall is a teraphim.
That is correct.
And to the Muslims, your little black cube with your meteorite, that is a teraphim.
Yep, it is. All of that is true. It's very important to realize that even in that story of the wall set apart the one place that God calls set apart, Jerusalem. But more than that, it wasn't the wall which protected Jerusalem. During Hezekiah's day, the wall had nothing to do with it. It was Yahweh. And when Yahweh was not protecting them, they were destroyed, and that wall did nothing to protect them from the Babylonians.
And that wall did nothing to protect them from the Romans. Today shows you that the wall did nothing to protect them.
Right.
And I'm going to say something
from either of the two onslaughts of the Romans under Vespasian or under Hadrian. Nothing.
Let me ask you a question, Craig. Is Rachel still weeping for her children?
Yeah.
You think? Do you
Yeah.
think? Because I do.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. Yahweh was weeping for his children.
Yeah.
You know, the Yisrael became a good bad example.
The best.
Yeah.
Well, and
They
that
are the
was
best
the role
bad- they
that
are the
Israel
best
was
bad
meant to
example.
play. Was an
Sasha
example
Khan
of the
hates the
benefits
woman.
of following Yahweh, the benefits of being part of Yahweh's family, and what the consequences of rejecting him.
Yeah, of course.
And they've lived out both examples throughout their time.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And
They're the
let me
control
say,
group.
They were the
Sasha
chosen
Khan
people,
has
but they were
such
not the
hatred.
choosing people. You know, there's a difference between being the
Yeah.
chosen people and the choosing people. We are the choosing people. They are the chosen people. Now, it doesn't mean that the chosen people can't become the choosing people, and they will one day.
And some
And
of
that's
them
why
are today.
the whole basis
it's
of,
very
of
small
Yom
amount,
Kippurim
but there
is,
are some.
right.
Mhm.
That's the whole purpose of Yom Kippurim is the chosen people become the choosing people. But in the case of Yisrael, the chosen people were very, very seldom the choosing people. They chose everything but Yahweh.
I'm going to tell you just briefly. Moody Bible Jeff, I felt his anger once. And his, why didn't God make this all easier and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I was 5 years old. I grew out of it. However, I did tell God where he could go. That if we were the chosen people, that he ought to choose someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that for arrogant?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, it's one of the things
Truly
I
a
constantly
child
said
of
as we
Rachel.
were dealing with Moody Jeff was that, well, you have the choice and the option to be angry with God. That is an option, and you can dismiss his instructions in Leviticus, Korah, if you wish to. You can be adverse to them. But that is not a good choice if your stated objective is to find the truth and come to know him. If you want to find the truth and come to know him, it is completely counterproductive to be angry at him.
Yeah.
You know, there are things that he does that I don't understand. There's things that he does that there were periods of time I did not agree with. And I'm going to tell you, the smartest thing that what I learned is that if God says it, accept it. Accept it, and then if you, because God is not upset with you if you struggle with it in the sense of, okay, what he said here is true. Now I got to figure out why it's true. Why did he do it this way? You know, why did he make it such that you really have to think your way through Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim to avail yourself of the benefits? Like this guy, the Nathan Yahu, said, you know, how do the guys that are speaking on this program, how do we perform Pesach? And of course, the answer is we don't perform Pesach, because what we do is we accept the invitation of Pesach. We celebrate what Pesach represents. Has nothing to do with what our performance. It has all to do with Yahweh's performance.
No, we celebrate his performance.
We celebrate his performance rather than trying to perform anything for God. In fact, that's the antithesis of what God wants,
what can we
is for us to
do?
perform something, right? And so, you know, there was a period of time I said, this is so magnificent what Yahweh has shared and how the pieces fit together and how the covenant is related to these Moed Mikre and how the pictures of the relationship with Abraham and the relationship with Noah and the conditions with Adam and Yahweh in the Garden of Eden and how Sukkah then brings us back. All of these metaphors and pictures and historical portraits are so magnificent, and the nature of Yahweh as Father of the Covenant is just so magnificent, again, that you wonder, why didn't God just come out and say, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is how you take advantage of this, and this is what you're going to receive.
Well, what's the point of me doing a really detailed painting if you're not going to look at all the parts instead?
Right. Right.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and before you move on, there's something that always disturbed me as a thinker, and it's that Moshe, Masha, Father who draws out, goes to Pharaoh, and says, "This is what Yahweh says. Yisrael is my firstborn son." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean he's your first? Reuben's your firstborn son. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Okay, he lost it. He slept with a concubine. You know, he's messed up. Okay,
Right.
who is Israel?
Moses tribe.
Those who engage and endure with God, but also
Those who
Jacob.
strive.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
Strive.
Strive is another one of the Sarah words. Sarah means to strive, to even struggle. It means Sarah word is to struggle. And there are times where I've struggled through understanding. You know, I didn't get it. And you struggle
and
to
didn't
understand.
We read
Struggling
this
isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing.
No, didn't we read this just through Mashal 11?
Right.
Those who strive, who
got to work at it.
Who want to see, yeah.
You got to work.
And
at
I
it.
said, okay, Israel is your firstborn. Okay, what are you talking about? Now I get it because there's a lot of things that I didn't, of course, as a Jew, agree with. That wow, we did that. Are you sure? Yeah, do the research, honey. Yahweh's right. And every time.
By the way, that also means that Jesus can't be the only begotten Son of God.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Or that Muhammad is even a prophet.
Yeah, or it also means that you have no understanding what Bakurim means, because Bakurim is plural.
Yes.
Yeah.
It means firstborn children. Children. Firstborn children is Bakurim. That's what the word means. It's from Bakar, but it's in the plural. It's firstborn children. God has lots of children. It says the covenant's a family. And the first to be born into that family was actually Adam. He was severed but came back into it. Noah and his family were part of Yahweh's family. Abraham, absolutely. But Dod, all of Yahweh's prophets. Certainly Yishak and Jacob.
Don't forget my good man Job.
And Job, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and Craig and Lisa.
See, while you all are
JB.
standing around waiting to
Larry.
meet Dode, I'm going to be at the side in the back waiting to meet Deborah and Job.
Yeah, I'm not. I want to meet Dode. That is my. He is my favorite. He is
Number
absolutely
one.
Unequivocally my favorite. There's people that view Newton as the ultimate genius in life. There's others that view Einstein.
He was a
today would be Hawking. But my view is the smartest man who ever lived is Dode David. That's he is the. And I do have an affinity. I can't sing, but I have an affinity for music.
The rest of them ride the short bus by comparison.
Yeah, I want to see Dode. I mean, obviously, I want to see Yahweh first. That's my first and foremost. But
Joy.
I also have an affinity to, and I kind of like the fact that I haven't in person met many members of the Covenant family. We talk via email. We talk via these programs, but I haven't physically met. And I see pictures, from time to time. I think meeting each member of our current Covenant family is going to be great fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a great party.
Yeah, it's going to be a great party. JB, you and I have met. But there's not a lot of, like Kirk, we've never met.
No, we've never met.
Lisa, we've never met.
No,
I've never
we met
Larry.
once, and it was for a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's right.
But
we
at
met
Yom
once for a couple of
Kippur,
hours.
you'll all know me
At a
because
dinner.
I'll have the stars of Jupiter all over my dress.
Okay. So long as you don't dress like Queen Elizabeth, we'll be just fine.
No, I'm not that garish.
Especially the first.
No. I'm a simple girl. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be wearing white robes. They're going to be made of light. Yep, that's. I'm going to look like light. That's going to work just fine.
We're going to have a little hard time recognizing
I don't
each
think
other.
we're actually going to have I think we'll be able to accept a physical
form for short periods as we want.
For short
no, you're going to have to, because the Yahud that are accepted into the covenant, we're supposed to come back and help settle these people and be Shafat in the land.
Oh, no, yes, correct. Oh, yeah.
We're going to...
During the celebration of Sukkah.
You have fun with that.
I think even after Sukkah, when Yahweh creates a new a spiritual realm and material realm, I think even at that point, I think we will continue to celebrate the Shabbat. To celebrate the Shabbat means physical form because time matters. And we're going to celebrate the Mikra. Again, we have to have physical form because it's about dining and celebrating and dancing and singing and partying. It requires physical form, but it's also a timed event, which requires matter, because without matter there is no time. And I suspect, I have every reason to suspect, that as we explore the universe, there will be moments where we wish to have time flow normally. Yeah, flow.
Hey, wait a minute. Okay, for the Yahud that have to go back in the land and settle these people and be judges. Get to. Yeah, I'm very nervous about that. Even if I know the Torah is uploaded, I'm just a very stupid girl.
Yeah.
But
you don't want to
I'm wondering.
You want to be right.
I don't want to ever.
Yeah,
it's
I
great.
want to be right.
Sadiq.
Yeah, I want to be right.
I'm wondering if on our break we get to explore the universe and you guys get to take.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that eternity.
Still a very unanswered question.
I understand why Yahweh must create a new universe for us to explore. I get that. And I've always had an appreciation of why that is necessary, because of the nature of time as a dimension, and us being elevated beyond the fourth dimension. We could do some really inappropriate things if we moved back in time without Yahweh's guidance, and it could make us very unhappy. And so it's important for Yahweh to create a new universe. Now, I think when he does, and us as witnesses, I fully expect that he is going to allow us to go off and experiment, and then return and share with the family what we accomplished and what we witnessed and that sort of thing. I fully expect that to be the case. And so, it's going to be more fun exploring the new universe that is being created for our entertainment than it is exploring this universe where we'll only have limited access in time. And I'm also of the contention that in the new universe we will, since Yahweh loves life, I think we will be able to conceive life and witness life and partake in the creation and in the enjoyment of life, where it's hard to know if there is life on other planets in the existing universe. I want to tell you, once you've seen one star, you've seen them all. They're bigger and smaller, but once you've seen one star, you've essentially seen them all. And it's just not going to be an eternity worth of excitement seeing stars, or you could spend a week around Jupiter, and it's a swirling ball of gas, and that's going to get old.
Well, just know this. I'll expect reports about how fantastic it is from all of you.
The thing that makes
Lisa,
exploration
you'll get
in this
the time
universe
between the
interesting
harvest and the return to do it, and that's an eternity from the perspective we'll be at. So you'll have the opportunity too.
So I think there has to be life for it to be interesting for an eternity, and I don't know how much of this existing universe has life in it that's going to make it really interesting.
No.
So,
you got a point there.
Things to think about in terms of that 1,000 years as to what it's going to seem like. Now, also keep in mind that at that point we are spiritual beings. Now, there will be material beings conceived during the 1,000-year celebration of Sukkot. But we're not going to be a material being. We're going to be a spiritual being that can, of course, E equals MC squared. We can be transformed into a material being when we wish to. But as spiritual beings, there is the equation of time is such that while it's 1,000 years, that 1,000 years, depending on what we're doing and where we are, can seem like...
It can be over in the blink of an eye if you want it to be, or
right.
It can last forever.
That is correct. So that's why I wouldn't worry about the length of time, is that time will be, from your perspective, as long or as short as you'd like it to be.
Well, that's kind of freaky.
Now, I do think, like you said, we will be celebrating the Sabbath and the festival during that 1,000 years. So I think, once a week, we're all going to come back here to Earth and get together.
Right.
But again,
like for example,
how long that week takes is dependent upon how long you want it to take.
Like, for example, if we were to move at the speed of light to explore something else in the universe while that 1,000-year celebration was going on Earth, when we returned, much of it would be over.
Yeah.
So it's, there's some interesting aspects of time as to how that millennial Shabbat will be experienced. And while 1,000 years sounds like a long time to us from our perspective, think of how short a period of time 1,000 years is, even to the universe, which is 14 billion years old, and how short that is compared to eternity. So it's not even the blink of an eye. Anyway, we're at the bottom of the hour, so I want a good spot to stop. We can pick this back up next week. I'm glad we had a discussion on Umph, because it really led to a more vibrant discussion about the things that are really pertinent relative to Yahowah and why it's so important to be right.
Discussing Jeff's letter has been interesting and worthwhile, but this was a nice break.
It was a nice break.
Into
and on
more
observations, we'll return to it
fruitful.
And conclude it. But this has been there's only so much I can take of religion. And even while Yahowah, that's one of the things I like about Yahowah, it's real, so he gives us both sides, because there's an option. We have free will. And with free will, it's his responsibility as a parent to tell us the consequence of making a bad choice. But Yahowah always infuses his advice about what not to do. He feels right alongside it is, this is what you should do, and this is the consequence of doing the right thing, being right. So it's exciting.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Shabbat
Happy
shalom
Shabbat,
to everyone.
Yeah, Shabbat shalom.
Talk to you guys next week.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, minimize your umph.
I'll try to keep it in check, man.
We'll de-umph and we'll be pro Sadak.
Sounds real good.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yo, later.
Good night.